What if the Chosen One destroyed the Force? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. It was rare for Palpatine to see his apprentice so nervous, but even through the hologram, he can sense the anxiety in Dooku. The way he shifts his weight around, the way his lip purses, and how his eyes flicker around.
Master, there is a most troubling development in this war. Have you begun noticing tremors in the Force?
Palpatine stiffens. Surprised Dooku had seen it as well. He had been feeling them for years now, but they had started to grow during the war. There were sudden surges of energy, localized in one place. A vergence. Normally such a thing would be quite useful for their plans and allow them to access more power, but those tremors felt different. While the powers felt more concentrated, they did not spread out and offer themselves to all Force users. If anything, they felt like they were draining the Force. During these instances, Palpatine struggled to perform even simple tasks in the Force. He told himself that he was simply unprepared for it, but the truth is, he was growing worried. Even after the most recent one, several weeks ago, he still isn't fully recovered.
What do you know about it, Dooku?
They are caused by Skywalker. The boy is more powerful than we believed. I was with him when he unleashed the vergence, so I felt its effects firsthand.
He plays a recording of their most recent encounter in a weathered control facility that was being tested on Rusan. It shows them dueling as always, though this time things seem to favor Dooku as the unstable weather knocked Anakin off balance. The Count circles him and almost seems to be toying with the young Jedi. He drags his lightsaber across the ground, smirking as he uses a force push to knock him off balance and lets the wind do the rest. Anakin just barely manages to hold on, and Dooku takes this chance to leap at him, lightsaber in hand. But that is when Anakin suddenly straightens and lets out a shriek. A shockwave emits from his mouth and hurls Dooku back. Around him, the red winds of this force storm begin to shake as it battles for control within him. For a moment, it seems like he might be overwhelmed. To Palpatine's surprise, the air stills and the wind begins to dissipate. It might seem like Anakin has managed to take control of the storm and claim the Force, but the Chancellor's fingers are tense. No, it is something more insidious. He didn't control it. He destroyed the midichlorians around him. He had forced it to break before him. In all his years studying under Plagueis, learning about all the powers of the Force through the vilest experiments, there was only one truth he yielded to, and that is, no man may ever control the Force. That theory had just been disproven.
This changes everything.
It does. Skywalker is no longer the greatest danger to the Sith. He is a danger to the Force's very existence. Such information cannot be allowed to leak.
No. The Jedi must be informed immediately.
What? Surely you cannot be serious. They may try to use him to hunt us down.
You seem to forget what the Jedi are like, my old friend. They fear what they do not understand. They will not use one if they do not believe they can control him. They will fear him.
And with their fear, they will remove him from the table for us. A bold plan, my master. It could go a long way in turning him against the Jedi. I suppose that shall fall to you.
Palpatine nods and ends the transmission, leaving Dooku to consider everything that had just happened. Rather than feeling appeased by this, his worry only grows. It appears his master is now playing with a power far beyond his understanding and his capabilities. Soon enough, the information gets out as Palpatine's allies in the Republic military release footage, supposedly for analysis, but they make sure the Jedi Council receives a copy. Unsurprisingly, they are also deeply troubled by what they see. They had felt vergences in the Force, the strange sensation of their powers fluctuating, and were growing increasingly worried about how this might affect their powers. Like Palpatine, some in the Jedi Council worry that this might even permanently damage the Force, and believe that this could be tied to Anakin being the Chosen One. It is a sign that Anakin still has not yet mastered the Force, or learned to control himself, giving them more reason to not trust him, just as Palpatine hoped it would. This leads them to decide to recall Anakin from the front lines, and instead keep him in the temple so they can better understand what is going on.
I'm afraid I don't understand, Masters. You wish to keep me here even while the war is raging on. Surely I can be some help to them if I'm allowed to serve.
Difficult it is, but dangerous. Your powers are. Tremors in the Force, we felt. Tremors that affect the galaxy, they are.
We understand your desire to help the war effort, and we are saddened to lose you on the front lines, but this is a risk we cannot afford. Our research has shown us that the recent evolutions in the Force were caused by your powers being unleashed.
I would never do anything to harm the Force in such a way. You have to believe me. There has to be a mistake.
There is no mistake, young Skywalker. We understand you do not intend to hurt the Force, but nevertheless, we must proceed cautiously. Should another incident occur, there is no telling what kind of destruction it may do.
In the meantime, rest you may, and meditate. Learn about the Force and how to control yourself. Only then can you overcome this burden, young one.
Anakin's jaw tenses as he hears this. It sounds more like they are simply getting rid of him, sending him back to the Jedi Temple to train as if he were still a youngling. He wants to argue and say that they are wrong and that he can control his powers, but he can tell there's no arguing with them. So instead, he bows his head and accepts this. So the young Jedi is pulled away from the front lines and made to remain on Coruscant. He spends much of his free time in the hangar, working on maintaining the starships and droids that inhabit the temple. It at least offers reprieve from the boredom and despondency of his new role. However, the Jedi Council also insists that Anakin spend his time meditating and studying the Force further. They take him to breathing rituals and have him study old holocrons about vergences and let him spar with masters. This should normally be a great honor, but it seems more like they are simply humoring him at the best of times, simply letting him tag along to prevent a tantrum. And at worst, they seem to regard him as if he is unstable. People like Mace and Kiadi-Mundi both act as if he's a ticking time bomb, quick to lay criticisms on him and warning about the dangers. Though he tries to heed them at first, their warnings and scoldings do not stop. They hammer in one point, and that is that they think he is dangerous. Soon enough, he begins to resent them, thinking that it won't truly matter what he does because they might never actually accept him. When that anger grows, Palpatine is waiting, ready to offer a comforting ear.
I know little about the Force, my boy, but it seems to me you bear a considerable burden, one that the Jedi Council does not seem interested in understanding. Instead, it appears as if they begin to blur the lines of your condition and who you are.
I have done everything they wanted. I have tried to control myself, but nothing ever seems good enough for them.
Indeed. For those who strive for perfection, it often comes easiest to point out the flaws in others, my boy. I know you can do much good in the galaxy. You already have.
Thank you. I just want a chance to show them.
Then I will give you that chance. The galaxy remains at war, and there is still need to help people. I have been pushing for more proactive efforts to help those most badly affected by this horrible conflict. The Jedi often claim they do not have the numbers to spare, but perhaps they might reconsider their position.
Just as Palpatine says, when he offers to let Anakin handle the mercy missions instead of keeping him in the temple, the Jedi agree. They see it as a good compromise, helping Anakin connect with the Force while still keeping him away from battle. For his part, the young Jedi is excited just to get off the planet and finally do something. He takes this new mission with gusto and begins traveling across the galaxy, protecting border worlds from incursions by pirates, providing relief and aid to refugees, and helping the homeless resettle on other planets after they are forced into exile. While he continues to be watched by the Jedi Order, it is more freedom than he was expecting, and he begins to calm himself down as he focuses on doing what he can to help those affected by the war. Aside from the Jedi, one person who is keeping close tabs on the situation is Dooku, who sees how the Jedi Order and Palpatine are both desperate to keep Anakin away from the battlefield with growing disgust. While they claim this is to protect the balance of the galaxy, he knows the truth. It is all for pride and to cling to power. He knows that for the first time, there is an existential threat that they cannot ignore. Yet rather than seeing it as a slap in the face to change how they are doing things, or even reconsider how to resolve the crisis, their first instinct is only how to preserve their power. Soon, Dooku begins to wonder whether it is even worth saving. While he has long been proud of his abilities in the Force, he watches how the Jedi and Sith are locked in an eternal war, destroying one another and only coming together when their power is under threat. It is exactly the type of thing he has longed to destroy. Corruption. Dooku's hands clasp behind his back, his expression unreadable. He has long abandoned any hope for the Jedi. Their hypocrisy disgusts him. The Sith fare no better. drunk on chaos, blind to consequence. But it is the Force that binds them all, weaving its will into every choice, every war, every death.
Always balance, never peace. Always correction, never freedom.
The Force is the prison. The Jedi and the Sith, merely their guards. He turns to the figure beside him, encased in black armor, silent and waiting.
Go, scatter them, make it painful, make it loud.
His companion inclines his head once, then marches off to carry out his orders. He has been keeping track on Anakin's movements and where he's going. Palpatine demanded that he remain out of the young Jedi's way, but he intends to break that rule, and at last release the beast from its cage. He tracks him to a resettling effort where a group of refugees from the Outer Rim are allowed to make this new planet their home. For weeks, Anakin and a small task force of Jedi are tasked with helping keep things orderly. So far, there have been no issues, and Anakin can actually relax. That is, until later that night. The assault comes swiftly. A sudden burst of flame lights the perimeter of the camp. Blaster fire erupts. Screams follow. Jedi ignite their sabers in defense, ushering the refugees to cover. But Dirge is relentless. His weapons are brutal, his strikes indiscriminate. A transport explodes in midair. Children are caught in the crossfire. A young Padawan is flung across a barricade, motionless. Several Jedi rush him all at once, but the bounty hunter ignites his jetpack and flies overhead, swinging his mace and forcing them to scatter. In the center of it all stands Anakin. His eyes are wide, his breath short. He had come to protect them. He had promised safety. Yet again, he has arrived too late. His knuckles whiten as he clenches his fists. His lightsaber hums to life. The bodies, the fire, the terrified screams. The Jedi behind him are calling out, telling him to stay calm, to focus. Anakin instead reaches for the heaviest item he can find, a piece of starship debris, and flings it at Dirge. The blow lands home and knocks him from the sky. The bounty hunter disappears in a cloud of smoke, but reforms right behind Anakin and backhands him aside. As the Jedi rush at him, he ignites his flamethrower and sends one burning and the others leaping aside. Anakin tries to strike from behind, but using his free hand, Dirge activates a wrist gauntlet and blocks his attack. He then pulls out his blaster and tries to fire, but the Jedi easily deflects these attacks and cuts it in half. Anakin advances yet again, expecting to finally cut him down, but Dirge pulls out a baton and parries his strike. With Anakin momentarily occupied, he turns and begins to set fire to the rest of the tents. Anakin takes another step forward, then another. The air begins to ripple around him. Without a warning, he lets out a guttural cry, and the Force tears outward like a tidal wave. The ground buckles beneath him. Flames recoil and sputter, only to ignite anew in red-hot waves. Dirge is hurled like a ragdoll through a transport. The surviving attackers are crushed beneath an invisible pressure that flattens metal and bone alike. All around Anakin, the air shrieks. The Jedi fall to their knees. One cries out as their lightsaber flickers, then dies. Another clutches their chest, unable to breathe. The Force slips from them like water through cracked glass. A knight behind Anakin reaches out, but their hand trembles, helpless. The connection severed. And for a moment, the Force is gone. Silent. Empty. High above in the sky, Dooku watches out of range in a frigate. He does not smile, but the die had been cast. The effects are felt immediately, as the Jedi are left in shock by this attack. Not just at the audacity of the CIS to attack a refugee camp, but also at the effects of Anakin's outburst. It had thrown several Jedi into a coma, which took them weeks to wake up from. And when they did, it took weeks for them to build up their connection to the Force again, at least for those who could. The Jedi Council spends hours debating on what to do. To them, this is proof that Anakin cannot be trusted any longer. The risk is simply too great, and many do not want to risk another outburst. Among them are Mace Windu and Ki-Adi-Mundi. However, others like Kit Fisto, Plo Koon, and Obi-Wan argue for mercy. It is not Anakin's fault that this has happened, and he requires more attention. They suggest that the Council's approach is inherently flawed. But many cannot accept this. They cannot believe that they are the ones who have been mistaken, and more importantly, they cannot accept the idea of losing the Force. So those moderates are soon shouted down. While this debate rages on, a communicator is left for them to find, and there they find themselves greeted by Darth Sidious.
Greetings, masters. I understand you have been searching for me for some time. I do not choose to reveal myself lightly, but there is a common danger to us all. That young Jedi will cause unprecedented levels of destruction if he is left unchecked. Think what you wish about me, but know that I care for the Force as well, and I will not see it destroyed. It is for that reason that I send this message. Follow these coordinates, and you will see the means of containing young Skywalker.
With that, the transmission ends, and the Jedi are left to ponder everything they just witnessed.
Dangerous it is when even Sith reveal themselves and offer their aid. Dangerous only if we choose to accept it. Surely all of you can see this is madness. He will not offer us this aid without expecting something else in return. The day the Jedi are in debt with the Sith is the day we have truly lost our way.
His desire seems fairly clear. He wishes to prevent his powers from being lost, just like any one of us.
I see no deeper meaning than that.
And what about the dangers? Even so, how can we know that he will not harm Anakin?
By checking what it is he has to offer. No, we cannot even engage with one like him. His intentions are not pure, and Skywalker's are. But he risks burning the galaxy down with us. Then it is time for a vote.
One by one, the Jedi Council cast their votes on the issue, and most of them opt to spare Anakin and instead continue discussing the issue. The deadlock is only broken by Yoda, who cannot bear the idea of punishing the young man for this. To him, there has been enough tragedy already. To pile on more pain and suffering is not the answer. Yet, as the council departs, a few linger over the transmitter, considering what their options might be. Among them is Mace Windu, who cannot bring himself to accept the idea that they would need to lose the Jedi Order to defeat the Sith. That is not balance. That is mutually assured destruction, and all that would mean would be leaving the people to pick themselves up from the ashes. Thankfully, he finds some like-minded Jedi who are equally bothered by this idea. The likes of Kiadi-Mundi, Luminara Unduli, and Pong Krell all agree that they cannot sit back and do nothing. That is what the Jedi have done before, and what got them into this mess. Instead, they take the holodisk and head out to these coordinates to see what tool Sidious has to offer. Hours later, as Anakin sleeps, he remains fitful and restless, still haunted by what happened. When he closes his eyes, he finds himself reliving the nightmare, watching as the village burns down and how Dirge destroys everything. And after that, he sees himself. He feels the power he had unleashed in the battle, the one that defeated Dirge, but also harmed his fellow Jedi. Anakin thinks of the Jedi with him. He had visited them every day to see how they were doing, and offers apologies for how he had let himself lose control. Yet despite that, he does not feel himself come to ease. This prevents him from feeling the shadows wash over him, until at last, he opens his eyes and sees them upon him. Anakin opens his mouth to scream, but he feels a hand clamp down on him. 4 more restrain his arms and legs, preventing him from using them to channel the Force. Then, one shadow steps forward. Mace steps into the light and regards Anakin sympathetically.
I'm sorry, young one. It's nothing personal, but I have to do what is best for the galaxy.
He fires a stun round that knocks Anakin out. Once the Jedi stop struggling, the group begins to lead him away, carrying him over Krell's shoulders as he makes their way to a freighter that they are using to transfer him off-world. Inside, there is a Mandalorian sarcophagus. They soon depart into the night, leaving behind no trace that they were ever there, or so it would seem. Little did they know, Dooku had long known of Palpatine's plans, and even provided the sarcophagus during his short-lived alliance with Pre Vizsla. Before he handed it over, he secretly bugged and tracked it down to an abandoned prison station. This information is soon placed in Padme's hands through Dooku's contacts in the Senate. The Jedi strike fast. Above the station, a Republic assault cruiser emerges from hyperspace and immediately deploys the Jedi. Yoda, Obi-Wan, Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, Isla Secure, and others. Joining them is Senator Amidala as well, who insists on seeing this for herself. The report she was given had said the group of renegade Jedi were responsible for the kidnapping, but she refused to believe that. Within this prison, Anakin Skywalker lies sedated in a Mandalorian sarcophagus, his presence barely flickering in the Force. But the Force still stirs with unrest. As the Jedi breach the hangar, they are met by unexpected resistance. Jedi rebels, droid guards, and mercenaries. Blades ignite, crashing in blinding flashes of green, blue, and violet as they rush towards each other. Kit Fisto deflects a saber thrown at Yoda. Plo Koon subdues two knights with a precision force push. The battle is swift but fierce, the smell of ozone and scorched durasteel filling the corridor. Obi-Wan takes charge, securing a foothold in the hangar as he throws one Jedi against the wall. For a moment, it seems like they might be able to secure the hangar outright, but then a figure leaps from above. Pong Krell rolls his shoulders and ignites his two dual-bladed lightsabers. He regards the Jedi Masters with a sneer and rushes forward. Obi-Wan prepares himself for the charge, but Krell never reaches him as Yoda grabs him with the Force and slams him against the wall. But he is just the first. Ki-Adi-Mundi, Mace Windu, and Luminara soon join him. There is a pause on the battlefield as the two sides regard one another. Obi-Wan steps beside Yoda, as does Plo Koon.
Dangerous this path is. Stop now, before you are lost to the dark side.
If we don't take action, then there will be no dark or light side.
Yoda closes his eyes, and then the two sides come rushing at each other. The sabers clash as Padme and Ahsoka break off to sneak into the detention facility. But as they disappear, a presence arrives. Dark, cold, and undeniable. Darth Sidious. He strides in wearing black robes, his eyes glowing gold, his saber crimson and lethal. Without a word, he leaps into the fight, cutting down two Jedi with brutal efficiency. His presence alone warps the battlefield. Jedi stagger, their connection to the Force trembling. Yoda must engage him to prevent Palpatine from rampaging unchecked. Padme and Ahsoka sneak aboard using falsified codes and stealth. They know where Anakin is being held. As the battle rages above, they infiltrate the central chamber, bypassing security and dodging guards. Inside the sarcophagus chamber, they find him.
Anakin, it's me.
Ahsoka activates the controls, and the machine hisses open, releasing mist and steam. Anakin stumbles forward, barely conscious, bound in force-nullifying cuffs. Ahsoka slices them free. It takes a moment for him to regain his bearings, both with his senses and the Force around him. When he does, he at last sees his wife, and the tension in his chest begins to loosen.
Padme? What?
No time. Come on.
The group hurries back the way they came, sprinting towards the hangar where the battle has reached a fever pitch. But as they are about to reach the ship, an explosion of lightning arcs forward. Ahsoka barely parries in time. Palpatine and Dooku step in. Ahsoka ignites her sabers. Anakin, weakened but determined, reaches for the Force and grabs a lightsaber from a fallen Jedi. For the first time in hours, it responds faintly.
You should not have come here.
Palpatine raises his hand, unleashing Force lightning. Ahsoka leaps, intercepting it with her blades. Dooku draws his curved hilt and advances. Anakin tries to engage but stumbles until Padme catches him. Dooku eyes her with contempt, but Anakin rises up, and when Dooku's attack comes, he is ready. He intercepts these strikes and pushes them back. Though it forces him back, Anakin refuses to give ground and catches each thrust. When the Count makes a stab at him again, the Jedi is ready and sidesteps the attack. He brings his lightsaber down and forces Dooku to retreat. Meanwhile, Ahsoka rushes towards Palpatine, whirling around and sliding under his strikes, but is immediately kicked back. The only thing that saves her is Yoda. He intercepts this strike and then advances on Palpatine. Ahsoka leaps up and rushes towards him. Her lightsabers whirl around, and together, the two force him back. Dooku catches his breath as Anakin comes at him again. His lightsaber flashes at him, forcing the Count to duck under these strikes. The movements were not as fast as they should have been, or as powerful. Anakin was still not fully recovered. Despite that, his youth and speed continue to carry him on. As he blocks each strike, Dooku tries to regain the momentum by thrusting his lightsaber forward. The blow is pushed aside by Anakin, who slams his elbow into him and sends him reeling. Anakin advances on him, lightsaber twirling in his hand, but behind him, Padme watches as Yoda and Ahsoka trade blows with Palpatine. Their movements come quickly, dashing into a dance and darting in and out. Dooku stumbles back and looks up to see the lightsaber flashing downward. Acting on instinct, he tries to throw himself back, but it grazes his body, leaving a long gash across his chest. Thinking quickly, Dooku hurls his lightsaber at him. Anakin moves aside and steps forward, but he wasn't aiming for Anakin. Behind him, there is a sudden gasp as Padme looks down, seeing the lightsaber impaled through her chest. She slowly looks up and drops to the ground. Anakin rushes in and catches her before she falls, but it's too late.
No! No! Padme!
Her trembling hand brushes his face, then it falls. She is gone. Time stops as Anakin stares at her glazed eyes, watching the life leave them. His emotions overflow like boiling water in a cup. The Force shrinks inward like a dying star. Then, Anakin screams, and it comes spilling forward. This is not anger. This is not power. It is annihilation. The walls split. The sabers die. Every Jedi, Sith, and Force user in the prison drops to the floor, writhing, choking, clutching their heads as if they've gone deaf and blind at once. Their midichlorians are burned away in an instant, as is everything else in this station, as is everything else in this galaxy. Midichlorians rupture across the universe. Sabers flicker, then die. Prophets go mute. Holocrons crack and dissolve. Palpatine crawls toward Dooku, eyes wide in disbelief.
What have you done?
But Dooku is smiling, even as blood pours from his lips.
I have done what no one has ever done before. Ended the Jedi and the Sith.
The Force is gone. And at its epicenter, cradling the body of his wife, Anakin Skywalker is no longer the chosen one. He is something else entirely. He rises up and readies his lightsaber, though he may no longer carry the Force. Fire still burns in his eyes as he approaches the two old men. Dooku, for his part, lowers his head, accepting what is to come with dignity. A moment later, his head rolls on the floor. Palpatine tries to crawl away, stumbling and begging for mercy, but he gets none. Anakin's lightsaber falls again and takes his head. This leaves the remaining Jedi to watch all of this. Some grip their lightsabers cautiously. Anakin's eyes fall on Mace and the others. They prepare to defend themselves and look at him, but Ahsoka steps between.
Anakin, please. It's over.
It is. And now I will make sure it stays over.
However, Ahsoka remains where she is and shakes her head.
Anakin, you aren't the monster they say you are. Please don't do this. It isn't the Jedi way.
The Jedi are dead!
No, they aren't dead. Not if we can help it. The Force might be gone, but there is still something we can do. We can still help the galaxy, even if we can't use the Force. We can still be Jedi. We can still be peacekeepers.
Anakin hesitates for a moment. He looks at the others gathered around them. There is confusion, loss, and pain written on their faces. Some look angry, others seem at peace with what happened, and others simply need guidance. Slowly, Anakin lowers his lightsaber.
I'll give you all a chance to serve. If you still wish to be Jedi, then step forward and show you are more than just the Force.
There is a pause as they look at one another, and then Master Plo steps forward, as does Kit Fisto. Obi-Wan follows and looks at his former apprentice. It is difficult to tell if there is fear or anger in him, but for a moment, something akin to relief crosses his face. Not all the Jedi join this new order, as Mace and his followers refuse to bow, but they were allowed to leave. This leaves them to begin picking up the pieces of the fallen Jedi Order. Together, they begin to reshape how the Order is run, bringing it back to its peacekeeping roots. While they can no longer channel the Force, they still have their training and organization. They slowly turn the Order into an all-volunteer force focused on helping the galaxy. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities. and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.